I'll just touch on the subject of pets. If they have a pet, we'll try to incorporate it into the session. And when it comes to posing, whatever works. But basically, you've got to remember that the eyes of both the pet and the senior have to be in focus. When posing people with pets, I try to keep both sets of eyes the same distance from the camera. I like to work at somewhat wider apertures like f5.6 for a shallower depth of field. But that means if the pet is going to be in the person's lap, the person has to turn sideways to the camera and keep the pet toward the back shoulder. If the pet is closer to the camera, you're going to run into this problem where the pet is in focus and the subject is not. And sometimes with an active pet or one that's impatient, like a cat, you got to grab what you can with the camera focused on that pet. Then I'll quickly shoot another image with the person's eyes in focus and then mask those two together later in Photoshop. But obviously, that's not ideal. So you can see it's much easier to get all four eyes in focus when the pet is on the back shoulder. Another thing to keep in mind is that wherever the pet is looking, that's where I want the senior to be looking. You can't always direct the pet to look where we want it to look, so it's better to have the senior follow wherever the pet is looking. When you're farther away from the person and the pet, the depth of field will be greater, so you can get away with a little bit of difference between the pet and the person. But that wasn't the problem here. I cropped into the previous image to show that the pet was moving. I was using an LED light, which is a continuous light. So with pets, we either have to use a faster shutter speed or flash to freeze their motion. Once you have your camera in position with enough depth of field and the lighting is all set, then you can let the spontaneity happen. The dog was facing the camera, so I had the guy pose straight on facing the camera as well. Now in this one, same guy, but this dog was more of a triangle shape, so I posed him in somewhat of a triangle shape as well. Whenever possible, after I get the photographs of the pet with the senior, I'll try to get something of the pet alone. The client might like it and buy it, or if they have a very nice order, I might just gift it to them. You know those pet portraits will become more valuable to them after the pet's gone. If they make a post about the loss of their pet on social media, I'll usually post the images that I made. While I'm not one to try to profit from anyone's grief, I'm also more than happy to make something like this available to them if they decide to buy it. We start off with pets having them both face the camera so that we can have a nice happy picture for them because that's traditionally what they like. But then after that we'll do something a little bit more creative, looking away, walking with the pet, something more interactive. With horses, I think we all know that we have to have the ears perky and looking forward. So it's usually a good idea to have someone off camera shaking the feed bucket or something to get those ears looking good. But for this horse, we weren't able to get the ears forward in this pose that I liked. So I had to rely on Photoshop. I grabbed some ears from a different pose and put them onto this one.